How important is early detection and intervention in halting or reversing the progression of dementia? And what types of testing can be helpful? Yes. So, again, research has shown that early detection and intervention is very, very helpful in halting, difficult to say, but reversing also difficult to say because there are very few studies for both of these, but definitely in slowing down the progression of the condition itself. So if you're able to catch somebody when they're just in the very beginning stages of dementia with very mild cognitive impairment, it is possible to help them hang on in there for a lot longer than if you're starting to intervene with somebody who's in a moderate phase of dementia, right? So early detection is key, and interventions, of course, the kind of interventions that I spoke about, the lifestyle interventions as well as the cognitively stimulating interventions, all of these are key to trying to maintain the person's quality of life as well as their level of cognition for a much longer time, right? So what kinds of testing? There is a whole bunch of stuff now available to actually test for whether one is even at risk of having dementia. So starting with neurocognitive tests, with somebody like me, like a psychologist, will be able to do with a person to be able to tell them if maybe at a later stage in life there is a possibility, or even have any of the symptoms even started already. Typically the process goes like this. You would start with going to a neuropsychologist or a dementia psychologist, and they would test you with paper and pencil tests, neurocognitive examinations, to check for how your cognition actually is working. Then based on the results of that and a whole bunch of history taking, the psychologist would put you on to a doctor, a neurologist, who will order typically for some of the more medical tests like a brain scan. A brain scan can be a CT scan, an MRI scan. There's a PET CT scan, depending on the amount of detailing that's necessary to figure out if actually something is going on. So what a brain scan does is, while all the testing that a psychologist does is more to get a sense of what is the level of cognition that the person is at, level of functionality and cognition. A brain scan actually gives you just a picture of the brain. So it's a very visual picture of where the brain actually stands. And based on that, the neurologist or the doctor is able to look at it and able to tell them if there seems to be something off with the brain, things are not okay, any starting signs of any kind of atrophy can be seen through a brain scan. Apart from that, the psychologist also in the history taking rules out other psychiatric factors that may be affecting the brain and causing these kind of cognitive issues. There's genetic testing that's available now to check for certain genes, like there is the APOE4 gene, which is supposed to be a precursor for dementia, which increases the risk of dementia. It's present in a lot of us, but the amount to which it is present can determine the risk of dementia. So there's genetic testing that can be done. Then there is a CSF, the cerebrospinal fluid testing, which can be done, again, which gives an indication of if the person is at risk, more at risk, less at risk. There are a whole bunch of blood tests that may be required. There's a beta amyloid test, which can tell if how much of beta amyloid there is in the blood, and if that indicates that there is some amount of cognitive issues that have started in the brain already. And other very simplistic blood testing for things like thyroid, vitamin B12, vitamin D, all of which actually in deficiency can make the person exhibit dementia-like symptoms. So it's very important to rule out all of these things in the elderly before we make a diagnosis of dementia. And even through lifetime, to make sure, like I said earlier, to make sure that your thyroid levels, vitamin B12, vitamin D levels, and some more of the vitamin B's, complex vitamins, if they are all in order, can ensure that the brain is aging healthily, right? And then, of course, the big ones are the vascular issues like the diabetes, the hypertension, and the homocysteine. These are the three more important things in the blood which actually lead to which can be precursors to dementia. And so to be able to keep the diabetes in control, keep hypertension in control through life, testing for all of these things are literally like testing for your brain health. So all of these make a difference. um, yeah, and then yes, I suppose the quality of sleep, like I said, is the other important thing that one would need to test for. Yeah, I think that's about it. This is how the testing process goes, and at the end of it, there is some kind of an indication of whether the person is already facing issues, cognitive issues, or if they are at some kind of a risk for facing it in the future, right? So yes, this is the process.